Deep within the sprawling, enigmatic labyrinth, where shadows danced with the faint glow of distant, unseen lights, lay a sanctuary known as Station C. It was a place of comforting routine, a haven for four peculiar inhabitants, two nimble mice, Sniff and Scurry, and their two little friends, Hem and Haw. Every morning, without fail, a mountain of the finest, creamiest cheese awaited them. It was their sustenance, their joy, their entire world. "Ah, another glorious morning, Ha," Hem declared, his voice echoing slightly in the vast chamber. A satisfied smile plastered across his face as he gestured towards the glistening pile of cheese. "Isn't this just perfect? Day in, day out, the cheese is here. Why would anyone ever want to leave this paradise?" Haw, ever the more contemplative of the two, nodded slowly, nibbling thoughtfully on a particularly savory piece. "It is wonderful, Hem, truly. But sometimes, when the maze whispers at night, I wonder what lies beyond these familiar walls. What if, one day, the cheese isn't here?" Hem scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Nonsense. The cheese has always been here, and it always will be. This is our home, our destiny. You worry too much, my friend. Just enjoy the bounty." Meanwhile, Sniff and Scurry, with their tiny, twitching noses and ever-alert eyes, were not quite as complacent. While they devoured their share with gusto, their small paws often tapped restlessly, their whiskers constantly probing the air, sniffing at the edges of the known, occasionally darting into a nearby corridor for a brief, exploratory dash before returning to the safety of Station C. They never spoke, but their actions were a silent, constant reminder that the world was larger than this single, abundant station. Their days continued in this comfortable rhythm, a symphony of contentment for Hem, a quiet questioning for Haw, and an instinctual vigilance for Sniff and Scurry. The maze, with its countless twists and turns, its echoing silence, and its occasional, unsettling drafts, felt less like a prison and more like a benevolent guardian, as long as Station C remained constant. Then, one morning, the symphony shattered. The air in Station C felt different, heavy with an unfamiliar silence. Hem and Haw arrived, their usual morning banter dying on their lips. The mountain of cheese was gone. Not a crumb, not a trace, just an empty, cold space where their world used to be. What is this?" Hem's voice, usually so boisterous, was a mere squeak. His face contorted in disbelief, then quickly twisted into a mask of anger. "Who moved my cheese? This is an outrage. It's not fair. We deserve our cheese." He paced frantically, kicking at the empty floor, as if hoping to conjure the cheese back into existence. Haw felt a cold dread seep into his bones. His heart pounded, a frantic drum against his ribs. "Hem, calm down. Maybe it's just a mistake. Maybe it will reappear." He tried to sound hopeful, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. He looked around, his eyes wide with fear, searching for answers in the blank walls. But Sniff and Scurry wasted no time on lamentation. Their small bodies, usually so quick, moved with an even greater urgency. Their noses twitched, their paws scuttled, and without a moment's hesitation, they were gone, vanishing into the maze's shadowy corridors, their tiny forms swallowed by the unknown. They didn't complain, they didn't question, they simply acted. Days bled into weeks. Hem remained rooted at Station C, his anger slowly curdling into bitter resentment. He would sit, arms crossed, muttering to himself, "They'll bring it back. They have to. This is our cheese." He grew weaker, his once rosy cheeks now pale and sunken. He refused to believe that his comfortable world had truly vanished. Haw, though initially paralyzed by fear, found himself growing increasingly restless. The hunger gnawed at him, but more than that, the silence of Station C, broken only by Hem's increasingly desperate complaints, began to feel oppressive. He tried to reason with Hem. "We can't just wait here. We have to look." Sniff and Scurry went out, Maybe they found something. Found what? More empty corridors? Hem retorted, his eyes fixed on the empty space. No, Haw, we stay. This is where the cheese belongs. It will return. But Haw couldn't shake the feeling that something was calling him. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper from the maze itself. One afternoon, driven by a hunger that was now more a dull ache than a sharp pang, he started to explore the immediate vicinity of Station C. He ran his fingers along the cold, smooth walls, his eyes scanning every inch. He noticed a faint, almost invisible shimmer on the floor, a barely there trail of what looked like microscopic cheese dust, leading away from Station C and into a narrow, seldom-used passage. He knelt, peering closer, and there, etched subtly into the stone, almost hidden by a trick of the light, was a tiny, stylized drawing of a mouse, its nose pointed forward, followed by a faint, almost imperceptible arrow. It was a clue, a silent message from Sniff and Scurry, or perhaps from the maze itself, urging him onward. Look, Haw exclaimed, his voice filled with a newfound excitement. There's a trail and a mark. I think Sniff and Scurry left us a sign. They've gone this way. Hem barely glanced. A trail of dust? A scratch on the wall? Haw, you're imagining things because you're hungry. It's a trick. The maze is playing with us. We stay here where it's safe, where the cheese should be. Haw felt a pang of despair, but it was quickly overshadowed by a surge of determination. He looked at him, then at the dark, inviting passage. The fear was still there, a cold knot in his stomach, but it was now accompanied by a stronger, more compelling emotion. Hope. I can't stay, Hem. I can't. I'm going to follow this. I have to know. Hem looked up, his eyes wide with a mixture of betrayal and fear. You're leaving me? You're abandoning our home? You're going into that unknown darkness? You'll get lost. You'll never find anything. Haw hesitated, his heart aching for his friend. I hope not, Hem. I truly hope not. But staying here, waiting for what might never come, that feels like a different kind of lost. A slower, more painful kind of lost. Please, think about it. What would you do if you weren't afraid? With a heavy heart, Haw turned and stepped into the narrow passage, the faint trail of cheese dust and the tiny mouse symbol his only guides. The journey was arduous. The maze was vast and confusing, a labyrinth of choices. Haw encountered dead ends, dark corners that seemed to swallow light, and long, winding passages that led nowhere. He felt fear, loneliness, and moments of crushing doubt. He often thought of him, safe, or so he imagined, back at Station C, and wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. But then he would remember the empty station, the gnawing hunger, and the quiet whisper of the maze, urging him to keep moving. He wrote messages on the walls as he went, little affirmations to himself, and perhaps to anyone who might follow. The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you find new cheese. Movement in a new direction helps you find new cheese. After what felt like an eternity, just as his hope began to wane and his strength falter, he noticed a faint, sweet aroma in the air, different from the stale, dusty smell of the maze. It grew stronger with every step, pulling him forward. He rounded a final corner, and there it was. A new station, bathed in a soft, welcoming light. Station N. And there, amidst an even larger, more magnificent pile of fresh, delicious cheese, were Sniff and Scurry, their small bodies contentedly feasting. They looked up, their bright eyes acknowledging Haw with a silent, knowing glance, a tiny flick of their tails. They had found it, just as he had. They had simply moved on, without fuss or fear. Haw sank to the ground, tears of relief and joy streaming down his face. He devoured the cheese, savoring every bite, feeling life and warmth return to his weary body. He looked at Sniff and Scurry, their simple, effective strategy a stark contrast to his own prolonged struggle. They hadn't overthought, they had simply adapted. He spent days at Station N, regaining his strength, reflecting on his journey. He realized that the fear of the unknown had been far worse than the reality of the maze. Change wasn't a threat, it was an opportunity. He thought of Hem, still stuck in his anger and denial, and felt a profound sadness. He knew he couldn't force him to change, but he could share his insights. So, Haw began to write more messages on the walls of Station N, and even ventured back a short distance into the maze, leaving a trail of crumbs and more words of wisdom, hoping they would reach his friend. Smell the cheese often so you know when it is getting old. When you stop being afraid, you can enjoy new cheese. Imagining myself enjoying new cheese, even before I find it, leads me to it. He knew the maze would always be mysterious, always changing. But now, he understood its whispers. They weren't threats, but invitations to explore, to grow, to adapt. He smiled. A genuine, peaceful smile. He was ready for whatever the maze had in store, knowing that the greatest discovery wasn't just new cheese, but the strength and adaptability he found within himself. The journey had been terrifying, but the lessons learned were a treasure far more valuable than any cheese.